So welcome everybody. We are a group of two guys, Dr. Mirza and I, who love sharing things and who love chatting with you every 2 weeks. We have one more chat to go after tonight's, and we are excited to do this every 2 weeks. Mirza and I converse over the weekend about the final touches about what's going to happen, and and after the meeting, usually him and I talk for a bit, about how it went and if everything went good. And we hope that the people who watch this by YouTube get as much enjoyment out of it as we do. Dr. Mirza and I do not endorse any products, any particular companies. We talk about different companies, and we give different companies an opportunity to talk. So even if you have somebody that you say like, hey, it would be great to hear from them that we have not had yet, or that we would like to get again, we would love to hear from you to see if there's any interest somewhere. You can let us know by email, or put it in the chat, and Mirza usually looks back if there's something that we need to look back. So any recommendations, please use those with common sense. Try things on a small scale. It may not work for you, what we recommend. And we hope that everybody will use responsible methods of using our advice, and use it with caution, but hopefully you're very successful using our recommendations of us and the other growers. So Mirza, the floor is yours.
Great. Okay. Thank you very much. And as expected, most of the emails coming in are related to a customer brought this plants back, and my baskets left pretty decent, and some of the problem I saw were total collapse of the plants, hanging baskets taken, and they were put in direct sunlight and a lot of UV on them, and that just is a total collapse of the plant due to roots not functioning properly. A few unusual bugs came in, and Laura sent few, and so I will show you that and share with the group here. Handling heat if plants are still left in the greenhouse. Most of you are mentioned, and I looked at several smaller greenhouses that they have almost closed now, very few plants left. Some greenhouses which continue a little bit longer into July and August, they always replant. They have a fresh hanging baskets getting ready. Some of the hardy petunias and other plants, so they go for sale in July. So it all depends what you are looking for. And then I decided that I will review with you, because if I look at all the chats, most of the problems come in when we don't realize what do the plants need. So I will quickly go through as a recap. And then they will go into the chat recording, and they will be your good material for your staff and yourself to watch them over winter, and when you get ready, so that you understand to grow good quality plants, what are the needs. I know Laura sent this email that I had 2 customers in the last days send me pictures like thrips, like bugs swarming all over their plants. They look like thrips, but they're very bigger than any thrips I have ever seen. And I agree with that, because when I saw them, I started looking that they don't look like standard. We know only 2 thrips: onion thrips, which come from outside at this time of the year, and other is the western flower thrip. So we seek the help of Dr. Ken Fry. So both said that they just came up overnight, so likely they are coming from outside. Both live in Vermilion. The hanging baskets in the picture on the left of the greenhouse in perfect condition yesterday afternoon, and then this is what it looked like today. Do you think it's the type of thrip? Is it something else? I'm not sure what to tell them to do. Use the RAID, you see. So the pictures you shared were very good close-up of that. These one are of course typical thrips, but when the close-up was taken, they're very big ones. So I have never seen, like Laura says, never seen them such a big thrips. So Dr. Ken Fry wrote back that the large size, black color, and lack of banding on the wings rules out several species. So good information that black color, lack of banding on the wings, rules of several species. Given that the plants were clean when they left the greenhouse, it is likely that thrips populated the plants from an outside source. That's a good logic to always thinking in that way. The locality of Vermilion indicates it's close to agricultural land. If canola is grown nearby and there are any trees in the genus Prunus, there it is likely is a Thrips vulgatissimus. This is a native species with Prunus as the larval host, and the adults visit any kind of flower. The adults are often found in canola blooms. They feed on the pollen and rarely cause any damage to the plants. To be absolutely certain, I would have to slide mount the specimen and examine them under the compound microscope. However, given the context, it is more likely Thrip vulgatissimus. Yes, so it's a very big one and very black in color. So that was quite Ken Fry observation. And he did say that they feed on the pollen and rarely cause any damage to the plants. To be absolutely certain, I would have to slide mount. So he's going to do that. There should be no need to spray with anything other than water to remove them from the plants. They will come back unless there are other types of blooms in the area. So good answer, add to our knowledge that these things could happen. And I think it was Beth who said this, that somebody saw these. This time I used the artificial intelligence Bing and posted the picture, and right away it came the twice stabbed stink bug. I don't know why they call this twice stabbed, but though this is a type of stink bugs, I don't know what type of damage they cause, but generally stink bugs are not a big issue for greenhouse plants.
Are they bright green when they're young and then change to that color?
Maybe that's twice stabbed. Yeah. Did you see any damage being caused anywhere or no? Did they cause any damage to the plants?
No, we're talking now about this one here. Laura wants to know if it's green first and then changes to this color as an adult.
Yeah, it's quite possible. Yeah. And these are the adults. There's no doubt.
Yes. So.
Yeah. Okay, so quickly taking you through the basics of plant needs, nutrients, and fertilizers. When I check out all my chat, most of the questions were about fertilizer, nutrient, nitrogen, deficiencies, injectors, how to use them, how to mix them properly, why can't we mix calcium with phosphate? Does the first number is nitrogen or the second one? So I will go through it. And so basically, this is my favorite topic as well, that what do plants need to grow and develop flowers and fruit? Nutrients are a set of elements, minerals, which are needed. And in one of the chat, I did emphasize that plant absorb nutrient differently than what we give them. Calcium nitrate, potassium nitrate, magnesium sulfate, they're always compound because elements cannot exist as such, so that they are compounds. So when we mix them in water, then they disassociate. So calcium nitrate, calcium 2 positive charge. So everything has a charge, electrical charge. So whenever we mix all the fertilizer, they're hanging on. Potassium with 1 positive, magnesium with 2, calcium with 2 charge, nitrate or negative, ammonium or positive. So it just is a whole new universe, I guess, that when we mix those fertilizer and water and then give to the plants, they attach themselves to the organic matter and then resist leaching as well. Sulfate leach pretty easily, chloride will leach easily, but calcium and phosphate generally hang on to the fiber or organic matter in the growing media. So if you have to write down all the essential elements needed for plant growth, generally, you know, what does come to mind? Anybody want to take a guess before I show them all, Michael? Of course, carbon, hydrogen, oxygen, we all know that they need. In bedding plants, we don't add any. We just depend on the natural carbon dioxide. And Loretta might remember, Loretta, how much carbon dioxide we produce from our breath? You still
40,000
remember? Pardon me?
parts per million.
Perfect, perfect. I owe you a chocolate next time.
I'm trying
Yeah,
to be
so-
all bigger.
Yeah, from the air, we breathe 450 parts per million, which is 0.04%. But when we exhale, it is 40,000 parts per million. So we are basically carbon-based animal, you know. Cows same way, other animals are same way. So we produce a lot of carbon dioxide, and that's where when we say tender loving care, when you're touching the plant, you're breathing around them, so that they feel happy, they get some carbon dioxide. So plant nutrient needs and how to meet them beside light, of course, carbon, hydrogen, oxygen, nitrogen. So carbon, hydrogen, oxygen, nitrogen, phosphorus, potassium, calcium, magnesium. These are called macro elements. They are needed in large quantity, 100, 200 parts per million. Iron, manganese, copper, zinc, boron, molybdenum, and chloride are minor element. They are needed in 2 ppm, 1 ppm. Molybdenum is the smallest one, 0.12 part per million. Recently, silicon is being recognized more and more for its strength, cell strength, powdery mildew resistance, because it goes with calcium, become calcium silicate in the cell wall, and then the fungi like powdery mildew cannot penetrate the cells. So practically, it can be used on plants very effectively. So every aspect of plant growth is integrated and dependent on each other. So if there's a lot of sunlight, there's no carbon dioxide, not enough, a plant would not grow. If one nutrient, nitrogen, is lacking, plant would not grow. If molybdenum is lacking, plant will be very slow. So always remember this thing, that climate, greenhouse temperature, carbon dioxide, water, nutrient, everything is related and integrated. Plant does on its own. So basically, when we talk about water, we have discussed it before. Plants are remarkable things to absorb water through the root zone. And under hot condition, they selectively can take up water, increasing the conductivity in the root zone. And then plant goes into a further stress. So you have to water and leach them more so that plant could transpire. So transpiration is the loss of water from the leaves, those stomata, those opening, and then what is it? And it's a very precise signal. So when light comes on, temperature rises, it sends a signal to the root, give me water, give me water. So if the temperature is proper, then nutrient will come with the water, but nutrient don't go into the air. So water is lost as vapor, and it is the nutrients stay in the cells. And once they reach a critical level, then they trigger the growth there. Respiration is opposite of transpiration. Respiration occurs when there's a dark period. Right now, sunlight is almost 15 hours, so they get very short time to make any where they could do more respiration. And then evapotranspiration is a physical thing. Not only those stomata, those opening on the underside of the leaf, but from the surface of the leaf, unless there's a waxy coating. If your plants have not made a good waxy coating, then this means that something is not right. Either the temperature is too high, the growth is weak. So there's a lot of plant signals which we must understand. Temperature, we talk about day and night temperature, but plant react to 24-hour average, pre-night and pre-dawn temperatures, integration. So temperatures are very, very important aspect. So day and night average, 24-hour average, pre-night, differences between day and night. That's why plant grows very good in March and early April when your day and night is light is 12 hours and 12 hours, good dark period on them as well. But as we plant become more generative when we go into April, when they start setting more flowers. And we do use extra light to set flowers on them. Nutrient uptake, each nutrient can become the limiting factor. And as I mentioned, when we dissolve them in nutrient solution, it get disassociated into ions. So they float, and with hydrogen ion, which affects the pH and the other ions. So that's where the good water quality, less bicarbonates are important. Nutrients are taken up as ion, pH and EC aspect. If I have to summarize, everything correct. If pH is not right, then our plant growth could be affected. And then, of course, insects and diseases are very, very important in the whole scheme of things. Sunlight is the most important factor in the plant business of making food. Outdoor light versus indoor light. So generally, our greenhouse material reflect about transmit light inside 75 to 80%. Glass reflects more close to 85, 90%, but double plastic generally is around 80% light. So outdoor light, if it's say outdoor light could go up to 6,000 watts per square meter, and indoor light could also go up to 4,000 watts. So light is measured into foot candle. Unit is not used anymore. We use it either joules, which is energy, or watts per square meter, and micromoles. Those are the common. And we have good information how much micromoles and daily light accumulation, how much the plants get. And the important thing to know is that only 5% of incoming light, which actually falls on the leaf surface, is used for photosynthesis, manufacturing this food. Rest of the light contributes towards heat, fulfilling the evaporation demand, transpiration demand of the plants. Loss of 1% of light is 1% loss of yield, but too much light is also detrimental. With this kind of heat and very high light, unless you shade the plant, your flowers could bleach very easily. Flowers could drop as well. The shelf life goes down because of too much light. Oversupply of light in summer does become an issue. What do you need to know about light? How much light is coming into the greenhouse? The units of light I mentioned: foot candles, lux, lumens, watts per square meter, micromoles per square meter per second, and then daily light integral, moles per square meter per day, and joules. So it takes about 1,500 joules of light to make 1 kilogram of tomatoes. So very, very interesting. For vegetables, we have figured that out, that 1,500 joules are accumulated. So they are measured every minute by the computer sensor. So 1,500 joules will be a total accumulated by, nowadays, your light will be 3,000 joules. But tomatoes make 1 kilogram of tomato needs 1,500 joules per day. Joules and micromoles are accumulated, so they are add on. More lighted areas in the greenhouses, some are less lighted. The greenhouse shade effects is there as well. Adjusting irrigation with light is very, very important, but most of the bedding plant growers don't do that, but vegetable growers, the advanced one, not the smaller growers. So for each 1 joule, we need 3 milliliter of water per square meter. So if the joule is 100, then you need 300 mil. If it's 200 joule, then it's 600 mil. So very precise. And this is to meet the evaporative demand of the plants. And then we need little bit of water for leaching. And that's how you calculate, if you're planning a greenhouse, how much water is needed. And a quick example, that energy input to a typical greenhouse: solar radiation, electricity. So here is the solar radiation, 100%. It falls on the greenhouse surface, plastic. So 19% is reflected back, just physically. 12% is absorbed by the material itself, and 69% is transmitted. In this figure will vary with the material, but generally these ratios are pretty good. Reflected from plants, any light which come in, 14% is reflected from the leaves and given off as a heat, 17%, and then 38% is used for transpiration, evapotranspiration. So we do need electricity, natural gas heating, CO2 from natural gas. So very interesting, a good picture, to see what is happening in a greenhouse. Sun angle, of course, on December 3rd, I took a picture at CDC North. It barely comes up for 7.5 to 8 hours and then sets. So very big shade effect. So if you're growing any plants at that time, vegetable growers then have to use supplemental lights. Sun angle, winter, snow, temperature. When sun angle is low, about 12 degrees, then we know that light intensity is low and also the duration is less. At noon, the greenhouse temperature is high and needs to be vented to bring temperature down. A good winter ventilation system is required. And that's one of the problems we discussed in Greenhouse Chat, that many of us don't have a winter ventilation system. Basically, it is right in the ridge of the greenhouse. There's a fan which goes on a tube with holes like this, so that the cold air brought in and pumped in, and then there's one exhaust fan on the other side. So winter ventilation becomes very important. And the good data, sunlight data in Edmonton, is amazing how much data is available. January average per day, 2.45 hours, 4 hours. Look at as we go into June, 9.24 hours. This is the average sunlight hours per day. But this is when they take into consideration cloudy days. Average day length, this is what important for us, 8 hours, 9 hours, 11 hours, 16 hours, it goes down. So what is in March, that goes in September. Sunny and cloudy daylight hours, good data you see is available for our purpose, you see. Sun altitude, solar noon on 21st day, bottom numbers is the last rows. So total of 2,205 hours of light out of possible 4380 hours of 50.3% sunny, 49.7% cloudy hazy. So important data. So source of each nutrient, CO2 from burning of natural gas or outside air. As I mentioned, outside air is about 4. Right now, I need to update it, almost 415, 15. Sorry, not 450, but it's gradually rising. When in 1980, I got my first CO2 meter, we were close to 300 plus. So now this is where our climate change is coming, our carbon cycle, that slowly our carbon is rising. Growers use natural gas burner, liquid CO2, boiler exhaust, but strictly monitored for low NOx boilers. Don't use hot water heater exhaust, absolutely no. I have seen damage. Beginner growers want some CO2. We talk in Greenhouse Chat, they go back and they talk with each other, husband and wife, let's knock out the hot water heater exhaust. No, that brings a lot of other material as well. So carbon dioxide, 400 ppm, 450 from CO2 in the air. Under low ventilation periods, February to April, CO2 levels in greenhouses can drop to below 200 and the plant growth will slow down. CO2 concentration enters the plant through these stomata, these opening. Vegetable growers use CO2 regularly. Bedding plant growers should use it, and they can cut down flowering time by 3 to 5 days, but I've not seen being grown at this time, you see, but it could definitely be beneficial. What are implications of CO2 for us? Each 1 gram of CO2 used, peppers make 6 grams of dry matter. So plants are pretty efficient. Tomatoes make 8 grams and cucumbers make 11 grams. So remarkable job of CO2 fixing. Each gram of CO2 used, 11,700 pounds of carbon per acre is required for tomatoes, 57,600 pounds of carbon per acre for cucumbers. So very interesting and useful data. Quickly, these are the stomata. We have talked about millions of them per square meter in almost every plant. So stomata are basically specialized cells. This right side is stomata is open based on water status. Sunlight will ask, okay, I need to get ready for transpiration. So that sends a signal to the roots, start absorbing water. If it's dry, then the efficiency will go down. And then the stomata will open and then they close at night time. And then potassium is involved in this process more than other elements. So enough potassium should be there. Parts per million term, we talked about a lot, so I will skip that. One part is 1 part in a million part is 1 part per million. 1 milliliter in 1 liter is 1,000. 1 mil is 1 million. 1 gram in 1 million gram. 1 gram in 1,000 kilogram. Milligrams per liter is 1 ppm. 1 liter is 1,000 mil. 1,000 gram is 101 million milligrams. So those are the kind of thing when you're making a calculation. Milliequivalent is a more technical term used, but at this time we are not worried. Basically, you take calcium nitrate, ppm, and multiply by atomic weight, give you moles per liter. But just be ready that your kids will be using these terms. Mom, what is those milliequivalent per liter? Either you could ask your Bing or you could keep that in your memory. 1 mole. Yeah, so just those are the terminology which I use in many advanced grower, vegetable grower use, not part per million. That's a measure of concentration. So this is more accurate weight. So 1 mole of calcium is atomic weight in grams. And plants like to understand that. What are the water as a nutrient? 500 liter, 1 liter is 1 kilogram of water has to move through the plant system to make 1 kilogram of dry matter. So a lot of water is required, you see. Water is the best solvent. Water transports within plants 95% due to transpiration pull, 5% due to pumping actions of roots. And that's where the question comes up if the foliar feeding could help. Some formulation are coming now that they could be absorbed not through the stomata but through the skin as well. But primarily root are the major absorbing surface, you see. Within the plant, water moves through the xylem strands. So cells have to be, I talked somewhere earlier as well, inside the plant has tissue, specialized tissue which go up. Water goes up toward the leaf. And when the leaf manufacture the food, they side by side with xylem are other cells which are connected to the ribs of the leaves and roots. So bring the food back. So very good sort of system you see for food distribution. The basic equation of the plants, everybody knows 6 carbon dioxide, 6 water, light, make sugar, and 6 oxygen. So water is important, 6 molecule, but the respiration is opposite. They take glucose and combine with oxygen, use energy and produce carbon dioxide. So plant convert that into nighttime. Nighttime temperature is slightly cooler than the daytime. So most of the plants will grow 22, 23 daytime, 16, 18 nighttime. How about mineral element nutrition? We have talked about carbon, hydrogen, oxygen, and basically are the nitrogen, phosphorus, potassium, calcium, magnesium, and these trace elements. Where to write fertilizer programs? This picture was taken when Morinville Greenhouse, Alicia, I wrote this program, Dr. Mirza's main field. It was still there for a long time. That was the time when we were using 20-8-20, 5 gallon. 1.68 kilogram, 5 gallons of 8.4 kilograms per 100 liter through the injector, calcium nitrate. So it's quite fascinating. But now, of course, you could write on your computers or on your cell phone or wherever you want. But these are pretty handy. And online fertilizer calculators are readily available. Examples of individual nutrient, we have talked about it a lot, so quickly skip it. Nitrate, nitrite, ammonium, urea, nitrogen. Plants take up primarily as nitrate. There is a precise pathway for uptake and utilization. Nitrate is converted to nitrite, very short-lived in the root zone. If it stays there longer because the root zone is very wet, then it's very toxic. If nitrite become ammonium, then urea, amino acid, molybdenum is involved in this process. And then nitrogen considered to be mobile from lower to the upper leaves. First deficiency on lower leaves, and I think in last couple of chat we have shown you some symptom when you grow. Send me the picture that petunias are showing lower leaves yellow, and most of the time it will be a deficiency of nitrogen. Mobility within the plant, nitrogen, phosphorus, potassium, magnesium, and sulfur are considered mobile, needed. Top growth, they will move from the lower to the upper leaves. This means deficiency symptom will first occur on the lower leaf. Calcium, boron, iron, manganese, copper are not mobile, so first symptom will appear on the young leaves. Nitrogen excess could also cause problems. Blossom and rot is one example. Phosphorus, key element involved, we all know it. Root zone energy and rooting and flowering are involved. And a funny thing is that most of the phosphorus is absorbed not as an elemental phosphorus because that doesn't exist. That's very combustible. Elemental phosphorus will light up just like that. So it is absorbed by the plant as phosphate, H3PO4. So I don't know when these plants involved. So 3 hydrogen, 1 phosphorus tied up like that, and then plant will use it. Potassium, one of the largest amount required, taken up and stored in cell fluids. Mobile, various forms of soluble potash needed, and needed in carbohydrate metabolism, disease resistance. Plant could absorb in large amount, and temporary shortage can still occur. Calcium, immobile, we talked about a lot, but we do need calcium solution, calcium nitrate. Magnesium, parts of chlorophyll molecule involved in green color. Sulfur, involved in chlorophyll formation. Iron, manganese, copper, zinc, boron. Iron, overall health of plant, formation of chlorophyll. Manganese, part of several enzymes. Copper, give shelf life and stability to chlorophyll. In one of my chat, I mentioned that our recommendations are high for copper right now. It gives you good shelf life. Customers take it, and it is able to tolerate a little bit more misuse because we have good copper in it. Zinc involved in internode elongation. Boron, protein synthesis. Boron shortage is more like a compact plant, which is broom, we call it. Just to summarize, plant needs have to be well integrated and looked after. Each component of need can become limiting factor. Understand how those needs are going to be fulfilled. Calcium is most neglected element in fertilizer management. And we have talked abundantly, if we are using a nature source, then we recommend calcium nitrate at least till middle of April, and then we make adjustment as well. Other fertilizer, we use calcium nitrate regularly. So hopefully all the chats, a lot of information is there. But this is a quick summary of what we talked about and what we'll be needing in the future. Okay.
Very cool. Very cool. So, because you can watch it back through YouTube, you could, for whatever wasn't absorbed, or because there's a lot of things at stake, like some are immobile elements and some are mobile elements. And I mean, not that it matters, but that way you know where to look on the plant, you know,
Exactly.
or it helps you diagnose if you
And
see.
even to start with, don't know the fertilizer you're using, have the rates and chemistry. They should be written somewhere on the stock tank. I've seen many people put it on the stock tank, not only the main, say, fertilizer, but also what is in there and what rate has to be used. So if you are away and your partner doesn't know about it, so they will phone and your battery is low, then you know how much panic it could be. So I think next time, Michael, next chat, I will show the pictures, the final cap. So
Okay, yeah. No, that sounds good. That sounds good. I was sent some pictures. Is there any questions in the chat? No, there's no questions right now in the chat.
okay, now I better give you the permission.
Okay.
To make you a co-host. Okay, Michael, you're ready.
Okay.
Good.
Okay. Do you see this?
Yeah, yeah.
So what happens in the greenhouse when things are warm and sales are good and you know all the plants are flying off the shelf?
Yeah.
We have a tendency not to look after the ones that are left behind. Our selling season typically is 6 weeks from early May until about the latter part of June. So in those 6 weeks, we are selling plants that were all planted at the same time. They arrived at the same time, and we made all our baskets at the same time, but they don't all walk off the shelf on the same day when they're in perfect position. So what happens is the ones that are the stragglers, the ones that didn't sell that good this year, or that you transplanted too many of, you grew some tomatoes and the germination was better than expected, and all of a sudden you're faced with a whole bunch of tomatoes in your greenhouse that probably aren't going to sell because you've only sold X number of tomatoes per year. Doesn't mean because you have more that all of a sudden you're going to sell twice as many. So you have a certain market share and you operate within that. So the plants that are left over that have to be sold in the later part of the season. We've talked about, Mirza and I have talked about, how do you look after those so that they can still be a sellable product? What do you think about this, Mirza?
Yeah, it's definitely stress. The heat has caused the internodes there. Naturally, plant has become a little bit leggy, that handling will be pretty tough in this case.
Yeah. But it's a little bit too late, to do something.
Yeah, right.
But, ideally, a person has to look at their plants that are still on the bench and see and evaluate, if they're getting too tall or not. And I know for myself, it's a daunting task that when there's customers or you're shipping or you're you're moving stuff and you're trying to keep things from dying, or you're teaching your husband to water, all these kinds of things. Guess what? Mirza mentions often that that sugary drinks and donuts are the culprits, but also we neglect so we don't look after ourselves that well, but we also have a tendency not to look after the plants that well. So this customer was still interested in trying to sell these because their season goes longer and their season is also infused with produce. So they have an opportunity to sell flowers much longer than most other people. They come for their produce and they go like, I may as well grab this begonia. But if it's looking like this, it's not the greatest. So as soon as a person has time, and sometimes what happens is we get a rainy weekend or we get a rainy couple of days, and that hasn't happened. So it's really hard to get caught up on the trimming, on the the grooming of the plants. I call it crop care. It's really hard not to just be sales oriented And then you look over, 3 weeks later, you go like, oops, this
Yeah,
is what
right
happened.
here.
So in this case, because the customer still wanted to sell it, her question was, how can I grow these better, in the future? How can you grow these better in the future? Most of these plants that you're about to see were not pinched, and a person might have to consider that at planting time, although you're going 100 miles an hour, that not all the plants are being sold on the same day.
Yeah.
It might be beneficial to trim, certain plants more than others. Most of us, when we get the seedlings in, and it's a plant that can be cut, we cut it when we transplant it into the basket for the planters. But at the same time, a lot of my customers are planting things in 4-inch pots. They say, I buy a tray of 50 or I buy a tray of 100. I need 80 for my baskets and I have 20 left over. So those 20 are often ending up in 3.5, 4-inch pots, 4.5-inch pots, and they're there a lot longer than they need to be. Generally, you can turn out a really nice crop in a 3.5-inch, 4-inch pot, in about 5 weeks. So, but if you brought your plant material in that was specific for your baskets, then all of a sudden things like this happen. So, not to have to throw it away. We have to look at, in this case, the physiological appearance of the plant. So this begonia, you could say easily, I could just trim it at the top. Can you see my mouse, Mirza?
Yeah, right here.
I could trim it at the top, but because at this point there is no growth, no shoot coming out of the leaf nodes. In the case of begonia, you can cut it there, but this will not make any side branches. So if this was done 2 or 3 weeks ago, when the plant was much smaller, and and yes, the stretching, as you mentioned, Mirza, is also from being too close together, 18 in a tray. So there's no space in any greenhouse in the month of May, because we pack in there more than we should. We all do the same thing. But to save this plant from going downhill even more, these large flowers over here, could be removed. You could cut the stem off. There's buds coming. The customer doesn't need to see this. The customer, in your greenhouse, this, when it's done blooming, will fall off and start causing botrytis in other parts of the plants. It's plant flower parts that fall on other leaves that don't need to be there, and cause rotting when you're watering. So removing these large flowers, all of these, like at the stem, cutting it there, would be very helpful. And of course, part of the problem that this plant is laying down is merely the weight of the flower. It just pulls it down. It's not always a trailing plant. It's probably a falling plant, because the weight of the flower is so heavy. So if this was removed and you could find some vegetative nodes along the side of this plant, and here's another example. In the case of begonias, here's a flower stem that comes out, not a vegetative node. So even if you cut it, this flower stem out, it will not make a new flower, and not make a vegetative node. So when you're trimming begonias, you have to be very careful, or you're never going to have any regrowth. So if a node has a vegetative shoot coming out, that's when you can cut it. So for now, I think I would trim these flowers, see if I can find a vegetative node somewhere, and take even the smallest tip out. So you still have a flower, but now you could sell it for another month, And of course, this time of the year, we do have a lot more space in our greenhouses. So I would say in those trays with the pockets, with the in this case, a P18, 18 pockets in a tray, I would say that, to space them out, like have 2, 1, 2, 1, only have 9 in a tray rather than 18. Enough about that begonia. Here's another one. but it's not as serious as the first one. But again, look how heavy these flowers are. And although they're very pretty, you're not doing your customer a favor by leaving these large flowers on, because the customer, 95% of the customers are not going to remove those flowers. They are just too scared, to, oh, that's blooming right now. We can't touch this, but if you remove it for them, when they're not looking, then they're going to have a much better plant. Yeah. So all of these flowers that are weighing the plant down, and even some of these ones that are partly open, could all be removed. Then two things happen. The plant stands up a little bit more because the weight from the flowers is gone. And now you can start looking for some vegetative shoots and start trimming past the flower and past the vegetative shoots, trim the head out, and then you can give this begonia another month. But if somebody came by tomorrow and purchased it, with at least 50% of the flowers gone, it would still be a sale. It would still be a very healthy, but you do not have to move this into the back greenhouse, grow it for a bit, and then bring it back. At this point, when you're removing some of the flowers because you're leaving a bunch of other ones, this plant can stay on the shelf on your sales floor. Fuchsia, this plant was not pinched, the grower admits. So like I said earlier, if you are planting some plants in your greenhouse that are left over from the hanging basket group that you're doing, then give them a little harder pinch than you would normally, because that those baskets were started much before you need to start your pinch crop, and they're going to be overgrown regardless. So a better trim on those ones that are going into the smaller pots, it would be very beneficial. And even when you are planting your bench crop, a couple of weeks after you plant your baskets, then consider that not all these plants are going to sell on the same day. Some customers are going to come in early and some are going to come in late. And so, if you estimate, that 30% of your crop sells later in the season and 70% of your crop sells, around in the peak season, Mother's Day, long weekend, then consider when you're planting the plugs to cut 30% harder or more or deeper, or remove a little bit more, than the 70%. Because that 30% is being planted at the same time, they grow at the same time, but now you've set them back, you've handicapped them, and then all of a sudden, you have a better product in the end, without having to try to find time to do some trimming and grooming and removing of flowers while all your customers are shopping at the door. So in this case, people will trust, that a fuchsia will flower. So you could remove 50% of this, and you could remove 50% of those two, have a very sturdy plant sitting on your bench that will sell, even though it doesn't have any flowers, because people will know, based on the colored label in the pot and based on their knowledge of fuchsias, that, you can trust that the fuchsia will grow again. The fuchsia plant is not like the begonia. There's very few plants that are like begonias. Everything else, even if it doesn't have any vegetative node coming out of the leaf shoot, you could still count on that plant is going to branch. So if this was done, say a week ago, even, when you first have time, when you're first coming up for air, when you really don't want to be doing this, because you're just coming off of a high, and all you want to do is, just sit for an hour. It would be beneficial, to try to find resources, a staff member or something like that, give them some instructions, to trim some of this, and then you're going to have a good crop to sell, for the second and third week of June. Look at this one. What is that, Mirza? Oh, I wrote it above it. It's evening scented stock. So she is wondering, how she could grow evening scented stock better. This is in a cell pack. This is the cell pack item. The other ones were items that were in pots. so a cell pack item, it doesn't need as long as to fill out as an item that is grown in an individual pot, never mind a basket. And in our catalog, we print every year, we print an ideal ship week schedule. And I know that freight is expensive, and I know that you would like to only make 1 or 2 trips to the trucking depot or 1 or 2 trips over here to pick things up. But it truly should be considered, to use the 3 ideal optimum ship week schedule. And you would find things like evening scented stock, in the later schedule, because when you transplant a 430, a 256, like a 512 or half of a 512, if you transplant that into a cell pack, it's not going to take as long to to finish. And in particularly evening scented stock, if you had seeded that yourself, that you would build a seeding schedule where things like evening scented stock and cucumbers are at the tail end of your seeding schedule, so that things like this don't happen. So what I do is I look at this thing and I go like, well, that's 3 weeks past its prime. So I will write, I have a catalog, with all our items in it. And anytime I find something where the timing is wrong, then I will write in the catalog -3. So then we will update, in the summer, when we do have time to sit and drink a beer, that we will update these recipes, these growing schedules. We call them recipes. We update the recipes, and I go like, oh, that seems like quite a bit. 3 weeks. Like I can't quite remember what it looked like, And then, but we still will knock down the 3 weeks, and you're going to find that all of a sudden, seeding schedules start lining up with the length of how long that it takes for plants to grow. And I'm not saying that it is always possible. You cannot drive to 2 hours from wherever to the trucking depot, and pick up 1 tray of evening scented stock. But, of course, we have talked about temperature. We've talked about, holding these things back with a little bit less water, that you can help control it, which requires management. Not all plants require the same amount of water, and not all plants require the same amount of heat, is to have these things right from the get-go, not in a warm spot. You go like, oh, I got to hurry these up because I've just planted them. Nope, move them right away to a cooler spot where they can, they can just, grow really slowly. Because on May the 1st, when we open our doors, does not mean that our alyssum needs to be, you can't see it, that our alyssum has to be this tall and in full bloom, because your customer is not ready to take alyssum home on May the 1st, so they just need to see that you're growing them. They could be just, if you have a growing greenhouse, where you do your selling at the same time, you could have freshly transplanted alyssum or evening scented stock sitting there, knowing that the customer is going to come back for it. They know you have it. They're going to come back for it when they're ready to plant. Here, one more. Okay, so this was her question. Last year, and in the last 2 years, there's been a big problem with availability of strawberry seeds. Last year was particularly tight, and we managed to find a seed source of a white flowering strawberry, and we were over the moon that we had the seed. And we seeded it, and germinated okay. It grew well. The plant was beautiful, but we got some pushback from our customers saying like, "Hey, the berries were terrible. They were small, and they were not tasting very good. It was not a berry basket variety. Berry basket is the standard in seeded strawberries, and we had this variety, that." This didn't perform the same way as a seeded strawberry does. So the grower decided that, with the importance of strawberries, what I'll do is I'll buy some roots, some strawberry roots, and I'll put those into baskets. And she's not the only one that puts roots into hanging baskets to make them grow, but she had a terrible time with them this year. And she would like to know from the group if somebody else plants strawberry roots in baskets, in larger pots, and if theirs did well or not well, she actually ended up at the end of the season, 50% of her crop looked like this. And when she digs those out, there's very few white roots. It's very much still, the clump of roots that it came with. So she's wondering if in the group somebody has more success growing baskets from strawberry roots. What's the consensus? Do you always buy the berry basket varieties, or do you grow from roots? So you can chime in on the chat for that, and then we can give her some feedback.
I've done both, Michael.
Yeah, okay, go ahead.
The only thing I've ever had problem with when I'm doing it from root in a basket is every once in a while you get one that doesn't take. I put 3 in each one of my hanging baskets, and every once in a while you'll end up with one that has only 2 root. But then we usually just pop in a mint.
Yeah.
Now it's a mojito basket.
Mojito basket, that's correct. Yeah.
But
Good idea.
I do prefer doing it from plugs.
You do, eh? Okay.
Yeah, I do.
Okay. Now, the seed supply should be getting better. There might be one year where it's a little bit quirky yet, but we're told that was a 3-year setback, in strawberry seeds. So, so by next year we should be starting to come out of it. This year we were able to get enough seeds, but as you may have noticed as a buyer from us, some weeks you ordered, pink, red, and white, and we may have shipped you 2 white and a pink. But in 99.9% of the cases, people said, I'm just happy that I have strawberries. I am not super concerned about the flower color. So some weeks we had to substitute the color, but we got everybody the correct amount of strawberries that they ordered. So I appreciate you saying that. So is that why you're moving away from the roots? Or because the roots are quite cheap to buy? They're cheaper than the plugs. Is that the only reason? Is because you have some that don't take once in a while, Laura?
It just depends on like how many roots I've got. So like, for example, I've done Albion in the hanging basket from root. So those are a variety that they're a perennial variety that I sell in my nursery. 1,000 is not always, 1,000 is a little more than what I need. So if I can't find another grower that wants to split it with me, I'll look elsewhere. And sometimes, like this year, I just decided I wanted to have something that had a little more color. So this year I chose a plug that had a double pink flower. And it was a really big hit, of course, because it bloomed pink and people thought it was pretty too. So
have you seen any berries off of?
Yeah,
off of
the last, well, I've literally got 1 left out of 100. And the last few that went out have actual berries forming on them now.
And they tasted okay?
Well, they were green when they went out the door, so I'm not sure.
But were they good size?
Yeah, not bad. They weren't huge, like not big like an Albion or a Delise would be. I'd say, I don't know, like raspberry size, like, like the raspberries you buy in the grocery store. Yeah, about that size. Oh. But they were still quite green, so.
And would that be a reason why people would use roots as for the size of the berries compared to the one from seeds?
Maybe. Yeah, because like Albion, for example, you get a nice big berry.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. Well, yeah. So I guess people do like the plugs. Rest assured that in 2024, the availability for strawberries will be better. We're buying seed early, so we're hoping to have enough that we can again supply everybody with strawberries like we did this year. We didn't have any extras. Normally, 5-6 years ago, we would have, I don't know, 25, 30 flats of plugs left, but not this year. We scraped the bottom and everything left. So, okay, the next slide is I'll have one more of a close up. So here, Mirza, I found this basket at a neighboring greenhouse. Took a picture of it.
Yeah.
It was hanging there, and what do you think? What do you think happened here? Like all those in that color, Mirza, in that design, did all that. There was other Calibrachoa baskets that were still green, and you can also see that in the middle, there was green leaves. So it's at the tips, and the leaf is evenly yellow. It's not. I'm going to show the next slide. Hang on, that's my last slide. The leaves are not typically iron deficient.
Michael, if I look closely, I still see some green veins there. So
you do.
It's a serious calcium and iron. I think I've seen combination. More likely calcium. You're right. But calcium generally is not is an immobile element. So more likely is iron. You see, but once iron becomes serious, they will become white, more white in color.
Do you think that if iron was grossly deficient, that even the veins would turn yellow?
No, the pH probably was pretty alkaline here, this one. And the Calibrachoa is pretty sensitive to that. So, because if I look closely, I still see the mid vein is still green. But if the iron deficiency pH is not corrected, then they will turn more white and then pure white later on.
Okay, so it's a combination. This grower was using calcium nitrate, but wasn't feeding any extra iron. And I didn't do a pH on it. So you also suspect that the pH on this basket was high.
Likely pH was the major issue here.
Okay.
The way all the basket, the whole part of the basket is affected, so it's more likely a deficiency of iron pH due to pH.
Okay. Okay, iron deficiency due to pH. And do you think that maybe another color of Calibrachoa was not as sensitive to the higher pH? That's why
sometimes it's possible, but generally this year I know there was a lot of different varieties of Calibrachoa showing iron deficiency, and they do require a little bit extra iron as well. Generally 2, 3, 4 ppm.
Okay. Oh, so you would been able to give him 3 or 4 ppms of iron to make him snap out of it?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
As a spray or as a water?
If they are still there, I will recommend first to take quick pH test and then pH and EC, and they could recover if still they have been thrown out.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. How long would it take to recover these?
3-4 days.
That's it?
Yeah, if the pH is 7, I bet pH is over 6.7 on them. So a couple of application of just plain water, with the pH of say 5.8 to 6, they will show color pretty quickly.
Okay.
Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah.
Well, this is what I had to share. There's some questions in the chat.
Yeah, let's go to chat. Some very interesting observation.
Okay. Stop sharing. Okay. Let's go to the chat. All right, let's go to the top here. Shirley is saying she would like some information on how to flush out watering lines, maybe in the next chat. Oh, that's a good idea. We haven't done that yet with Zerotol, just with water up till now. Also, we're looking for installing a shade cloth in 1 or 2 houses and advise the percentage of shade installation of various. Oh, that's a good idea. But professional gardeners sell shade cloths, Mirza.
Yeah.
Could we get them to? Do you think we could get Tahiba to do that one next?
She is traveling through Europe, so won't be back by then. Okay. So yeah.
Okay, and then Sandra's saying we prune everything weekly, and I consistently reinforce how important it is to cut off the blooms and buds to help the plants root better. I agree, Sandra. If you have the resources, to look at that. And if you look at it weekly, on things that are getting leggy, it doesn't mean you have to cut everything. You're just cutting the things that are fast growing, and long. You don't absolutely have to cut everything. You do a little bit here, a little bit there, because this is too big this week and that's too big next week. So yeah, so that's good. So that's good advice, that if you let it get out of hand, it's like probably like dishes. If you do the dishes every day, it's only a little bit. And if you let them pile up for a week, then you go like, I'm not going to do the dishes. The pile is too big, So if you did them every day, it only takes a little bit of time and you can get it done. So, all right. I have shade curtain that I purchased through Paul Boers and VRE Systems. That was designed for my building and it's automatic. And it was the best investment I've ever made. Yeah, I agree, Sandra. Now, shade curtains are not cheap, but shade curtains are also used at night, to retain heat, to keep the heat in the building. Even if they're shade curtains, it would still help, trap some of the heat in your building because you're making it smaller. Is that also how you used it, Sandra? Yeah.
Yeah, we keep ours closed all winter long. So we have Randy put some heat tape in our gutters so that they always melt off all the time, and we keep that closed all winter, and it makes a big difference on the heating bill. Like it doesn't escape at all, really. There's minimal around the edges, but it's unbelievable the difference it makes, and you still get lots of light through them. Even if you wanted to keep plants in your greenhouse, like some tropicals last year, I kept through the winter, and they still did really, really well. So.
And what type of fabric do you have on your shade system?
It's that gray. I can't even explain it. It's like a white. It's got that striping in it.
Okay.
Metallic stripe, reflective.
Yeah. Yeah. And then
it looks like
it's all.
Go ahead.
It's all automated, so it runs on off my Bartlett, and I've got it hooked up to that. So I have it set for like it comes on right now. It comes on at 11 when it gets really hot, and I let it run till about 5 o'clock, and then it opens up, and we just change the limits on it for in the winter time to keep it closed, and then at this time of the year we've got it so it only closes to 25%, and there's that 25% that's left open so the heat can still escape out the roof.
Okay.
But it was well worth it. It was a job for them to put it in, but it was well worth the money we put into it, because the plants, since we've been using this, I cannot believe the plants look good right till the end. It's almost a shame to compost them, but there's no burning, they're not suffering at all, and no, it's well worth the investment.
And you're not watering 4 times a day because the things are drying.
Once.
Yeah.
I water once a day. I get in there at 6 o'clock. I water once, the shade comes on, and I don't go back. I don't do any watering until the following day. So that makes a big difference, because you're not stressing them out, giving them more fertilizer all the time.
Yeah. That makes sense. So there's lots of good ways to do it. So even in the winter, you have enough light that comes through the shade curtain that the plants don't stretch.
Nope. Yep, they're fine. I keep them down on the south end of the building where, because the sun is way further down there. But no, they did really, really well. And then I just give them like nature source every once in a while, and I keep adjusting my water, like get my pH down like it's supposed to be with the acid. And they did really well. So.
Good. Was your building not completely designed for it? Is that why it took them a long time to put the shade system in?
That building, well, Rudy this building was old. Remember, you and I had I had asked you about this building. This one came from that grower up by Wainwright, and the building itself was from 88, 80, yeah, somewhere around there. So the structure itself is old, but we made it all put all brand new stuff on it. But all I had to do was give him the measurements, and then they just custom made all of it for the measurements that he made off of the Paul Bohr structure. And then we had wall-to-wall greenhouse come in and put it up, because they have quite a bit of experience with putting up shade curtains. And yeah, they did a really, really good job on it. And so I'm pretty happy
Good.
with it.
Yeah. Yeah. And now it's in, you're good. Like, and this shade curtain is not like plastic. You don't have to replace it every couple of years.
Not every couple of years. I think he said, what did Frank said, about every 10 years you might have to. Yeah. You just have to watch with the wind, because we have a sidewall vent too, and you just have to watch. If it's really windy, then he recommended like don't have it closed if it's really windy, because it's going to hit the arms for the roof and then poke holes in it. But in general, the curtain should last for about 10 years.
Okay, good. Good. Yeah, so Laura says the same thing. She does like Sandra. She pinches and deadheads and rotates weekly. I'm anal about it. So I guess the consensus up till now, you know, for the grower is, how can I grow these better? Is, you know, is to just do a little bit more, you know, care and pinching, you know, on what needs it a little earlier, you know. And Loretta is saying the strawberries, I've grown them from roots with not much success, but the best strawberry I've grown in a basket is the one from seed, called the Lees. They are wonderful. The Lees, eh? So who sells that seed, Loretta? Are you still here? Yeah, Loretta's still here. You get that from Ball?
I got it from Stokes.
From Stokes, okay.
Yeah, I planted them myself, and the earliest I've ever planted them was about January 15th. But I think if you, and I used to eat strawberries like by maybe the end of June, I'm not sure. But I think if you plant them a little earlier, they'd be even do better. They're just wonderful. They're nice. They're heavy producers, nice big berry, really sweet, delicious.
Good. Okay, Fragou. So Sandra, is that also a Stokes variety, Fragou?
I don't know if it's Stokes, but I get the plugs from Jolly Farmer.
Oh, okay.
And then we do enough to do 25 baskets right off the start, and then I get some more later on so that I can do them in 6-packs for people.
Okay.
But they have huge berries. Yeah.
All right. And you eat strawberries off of them before they sell.
Oh yeah, we're out every day when I go up. When Randy pushes me around on the rolling stairs to check the baskets, we pick them off and eat them. So.
That's good. Shirley, we've purchased roots from a farmer down the road. Split the order with her. We've taken a hit on these this year, as the farmer was slow to get them to us. In previous year, they've been a good seller, 15 bucks. This year we found that they didn't last well. And we've planted the remainder in our patches with our fingers crossed. I'm wondering if that is the case. You know, if you need to plant these roots earlier, you know, that they don't really later in the season when you're starting a basket later, that it's too warm for these roots to really take off. Because I mean, a strawberry is a cold loving plant, and you plant that outside in the field, you know, when not in a natural setting. A strawberry goes out in the field when it's cool, and maybe planting them later was worse than planting them earlier. Is that correct? Would that be a reasonable analogy, Shirley? Or you just turned your mic off instead of on?
So we kept them in a cooler with some ice packs. And so we had them, like, we counted them out and put them in 15, 16, 17, whatever in a pack. And we kept them in coolers. Yeah. But we had the first ones, which were June bearing, and everybody wanted the ever bearing, which were the Albion, which I was told, you know, are bigger berries and, you know, very good. But we were working with a farmer down the road who's a member of whatever association. And so I'm thinking, and she had them for a couple of weeks, the Albions, before she brought them to us. And so even though we packed them in a cooler, et cetera, I just think they just didn't last. So I don't know how they kept them for a couple of weeks, because she said, oh yeah, I've got them, I just haven't counted them yet. And then it was like at least 2 weeks before we got them. So anyways, it was a bust for us this year as far as strawberries go. Our customers really like it because 15 for 15 bucks is a heck of a deal. You know, we end up paying like 30 or 40 cents for each. So, you know, it's still a moneymaker for us. But this year it wasn't, just because, you know, the everbearing showed up too late for people. So, yeah.
And you only sold them in bundles of 15, or do you also plant some in baskets or pots?
Well, I didn't plant any in baskets or pots because it was well into like April or even early May until we even got the everbearing ones. So,
okay.
Yeah. So it just, I think, you know, it's worth the $200 and some to become a member of whatever association she is and do my own order. The only problem is then, you know, I have to order 1,000 of just one kind, but, you know, I mean, they still sold $5, you know, in a 4-inch pot. So some of them did. So, yeah.
The greenhouse forum might be a good place to say, like, hey, who wants to share 1,000 strawberries with me? You know, just post it.
Yeah, that's a great idea.
Yeah, and then just see who you know, who's local. You know, strawberries are a very popular item. So
yeah.
Okay, but normally you don't have trouble with them. You know,
No.
no. Okay.
No.
But you did say you had a terrible year with Callie's this year.
We did. Yeah. I don't know. I you know, again, knock on wood or whatever. I haven't had trouble with Kelly's, and you know, I've you know, read things where people do have lots of troubles, etc. But I throw out more Kelly's this year than I can shake a stick at, honestly. And from different suppliers. So and some of the ones that I got from suppliers, like normally I get you know, when you get the tray, it's like you could just tell, like they're all the same height. And this year it was like short ones, tall ones, medium ones, short ones, medium, tall, like so I don't know what was going on with those growers, but we didn't get consistency right out of the gate with them. And then I don't know, I was replacing, I had a lady that ordered 5 hanging baskets. I did a special order. That's the only proven winners I bought this year, was the ones that went into those baskets, and they were, sorry, I'm just going to say it, they were absolutely crap. I kept replacing those proven winners plants in those hanging baskets. The other ones that were basically sort of generic did great, but the proven winners ones, I don't know. Yeah.
Interesting.
So,
I found the same thing with I was also not planning on doing any proven winner stuff this year. And then I had some landscape, like commercial customers that requested specifics. And the petunias were okay. The Bacopa was not great. Same thing. I replaced quite a few of them in baskets.
So that was Bacopa and Calibacoa. Mirza, are both of those plants sensitive to a slightly higher pH, or
absolutely? All these plants, including petunias, they're very, very sensitive. They themselves change when they're fast growing, they change the root zone pH to more alkaline. So you have to watch them. So you remember that in our chat, I gave you a group of plants: geraniums, marigolds, New Guinea. They're very sensitive to iron toxicity because they change the pH themselves towards, especially when you use acidic fertilizer. You know, if somebody uses 20, 20, 20, 28, 20, that is much faster problem. On the other hand, your Bacopa, your petunias, they're all pretty sensitive to high pH. And the limit is almost 6.4. You know, the moment they go above, they start showing up.
I found they just didn't root as well.
Yeah, then probably there was a problem with the plugs, I guess, if the rooting was.
Yeah.
I actually found that too, that you know, that some of those, you know, didn't root very well for us. They stayed small, they fell behind, you know, they didn't catch up.
I did.
So Yeah, go ahead, Laura.
Sorry. Well, I'm just gonna say, like I said, I had decided I was not doing any proven winner stuff because they pissed me off with their pot thing. So, but anyways, I spent a lot of hours when I was doing my orders, trying to find, because I had already planned out my hanging baskets. So I spent a lot of hours trying to find varieties that I thought were comparable in color and like growth pattern and such. We were really impressed with the different genetics that we brought in comparison, because in the past we've grown a lot of super tunias and a lot of super bells. Really impressed with some of the other genetics that are out there. Just saying.
Yeah. You know, I'm good you're giving them a chance, you know, so that's good. You know, it's not the end all, you know, PW. So so Sandra also had trouble with cows, I guess, this year. Or no, you didn't?
No. Actually, that was a response to something else. Just skip that.
But we do have a question for you. Laura's wondering if you could put the shade curtains on a timer.
Yes, that's how they run off the Bartlett. So on the Bartlett, in the Bartlett, there's a section in the Bartlett controller that you can hook up and you run it off a time. So you can set them for 2 different times. So you can have one setting to close and open, and you can do it again later on if you want. So there's multiple settings on it. It doesn't run off light or anything like that. Not this time, not this controller, but you can do it that way too.
Laura is also wondering if you could run it off a thermostat. You know, if it gets too hot, then it opens or closes.
Maybe, I don't know. I would think that maybe some of the other control systems would have that. I know that they talked about there is one that runs off. It can run off. You can have a light sensor outside or something like that that will trigger it. But this particular, the way they have this one set up is it's set up for my Bartlett controller. So, and that one only operates on time.
It does. Okay.
Yeah.
And the question was, but you know, Sandra already answered it. You know, is this on the inside or on the outside? This shade curtain, but it is on the inside.
It's on the inside above the truss. Yeah.
So it's flat, right? Like it goes straight. It doesn't follow the curve of the roof. It goes straight.
No, because I have a gutter connect, and then my roof is round on top, not A-frame, and on top of it runs on top of the trusses. So there are guide wires that run from north to south, and rollers, and then it goes like in between these two plastic guide wires. The motor is just like the motor that runs your roof system, and it runs off a gear system, and it pulls it closed and pulls it open when it needs to do its thing.
And under the gutter, it's stored under the gutter.
What? It's yeah.
The cloth is stored under the gutter as on a roll, like is it, or is it just?
It's right. It's right above that truss that goes across the across your building. So right above that metal truss is where it runs.
Okay, good. So Laura found that Albion was for sale at Van Noord's, you know, 500 at a time. So you know, that's a much more attainable number for a lot of people, you know. And they had Albion, right? Okay, and I used to buy my plants from Van Noord, 250 each of 5 different varieties, strawberries, and sell them in jumbo 6-packs. Loretta, how did you get all those roots from that strawberry into a 6-pack?
Faye, my main worker, Faye, you've met her. She used to tell me that she would tie them in bows, but I told her if I ever caught her tying them, she was out of here. No, we used to fold them. Some of the roots were too big. If we had some that were really big, we actually put them in 18s, but they were really good sellers. Like selling them that way is a really good idea. It worked well. But
there's hardly any, by the time you put a crown and a bunch of roots in a 606, there's no room for soil.
It worked. They grew.
Okay.
It worked. They did really well.
Okay. And you're going to cut back on the PWs next year?
Yeah, I'm kind of done with them. I'm really mad.
Yeah, okay.
There's just a couple things that I want, but other than that, everybody else has everything I need. I don't need them.
And Laura has the question for Sandra again. How do you clean the shade cloth? How do you clean it at the end of the season? Is it dusty? Is it?
Yeah, well, it gets like leaves, and we have those crappy Siberian elms here, so it tends to get those little seeds and stuff on it. But Randy he goes up with the blower, with the leaf blower, and then we kind of leave it open, like we leave that 25% open, and he goes up on the big rolling stairs and he just blows it off with the leaf blower. That's about all you can do. There's not a whole, it just gets caught in the grooves and stuff. It's not, you wouldn't be able to suck it up with a vacuum or anything like that. You just have to do what you can do with it. And a lot of times, if you get a good gust of wind, a lot of it blows off.
Okay.
And it gets the dust right away, you know, the leaf blower.
Yeah. He tries to blow it so it'll go out the ceiling, but you know, you do the best you can with it, and that's all you can do. Is that you certainly can't take them down. It's not it's a big job to put them up. So
okay, good. Well, we got to the bottom of our questions. This was super interesting, you know, to hear other growers' perspective and have you guys do some of the talking instead of us. So this is great. If there's any other questions, or I see Gail joined us a little bit here about strawberries. What's the best variety for commercial production, seed or roots, is what Gail is asking. Well, I would have to say for commercial production in the field, the root ones are better. Your price wise and production wise, I would say that the root ones would outperform the seeded ones. Hopefully that answers your questions, Gail. Gail, are you closed? For greenhouse production. Oh, I see. Well, your neighbor is trying to root the seeded ones, Jeanette, Gail. So have a look at hers. I haven't talked to her for a bit about her strawberries. How are they doing? Have you seen them?
Am I muted or unmuted?
You're unmuted. We can hear you, Gail.
Oh, okay. Yeah, no, I'm actually asking for Jeanette. She's got some of the seed varieties in production and some root varieties in production, and she's trialing both of them. And I thought that's a long that's a lot of days to determine, and I thought the group maybe would be able to shed some light on what is the best seed or root. I've got some of both going on, and certainly the root has nicer berries. I've got the seascapes, and they're doing very well. I'm not doing for commercial production, just for sale, but I am asking this question for Jeanette.
Okay.
And just wondering, like, what does the group say, Dr. Mirza? What do you say? What's the variety to grow for commercial production in the greenhouse?
The growers I deal with, the Sun Terra has a special Dutch variety they brought in, a little bit not that red, but a little bit sweeter. Mostly day neutral. They are trying, but in summer, big challenges. They have to do massive cooling. So different varieties for different purposes, but mostly they are day neutral.
And is that a root, Dr. Mirza? Is that a root variety?
Day neutral.
But was it started as a root? Did they buy it as a root or a seeded plug?
They buy them as a plug. Somebody grows for them.
As a plug.
Yeah.
And do you know the name of the variety?
Yeah, one is a seascape.
But is seascape not a root?
Sorry, what's that?
Is like I have seascape and it's a root.
She buys Seascape as a root, that variety.
I could check out for next chat that what are the most common varieties used by people, but Seascape was one. Albion they have tried, but they were pretty good. But after June, the pollination was affected quite a bit in greenhouses. I will check what variety Sunterra is growing. So I'll make a note, and the next one we'll find out.
Okay.
Okay, I
Yeah.
also have a question about tomatoes.
Yeah.
I'm growing 4 varieties this year. The tumbler, of course, the tumbler, and they are very susceptible to the leaf roll. And I think that's high temperature. I'm growing the Fantastico, which is very fantastic. And the Gold Spark, which is a yellow grape. And Sun Gold, which is an orange. Now, both of those varieties have leaf curl good, like a lot of curl on the ends of the growth, where they curl almost gnarled.
Yeah,
Do they grow-
that's a light response, sunlight. You know, when the light goes over a certain level, DLI we call it, they roll. You know, just like human beings. You know, when you close your eyes, very common in tomatoes, especially the lower leaves start doing it, and then upper leaves as well. So I recommend them to go into a lighter shaded places and greenhouses. And you remember, Michael, a picture I took, those hanging basket in your greenhouse a few years
Yep.
ago, which were wilting. You know, they were all had a leaf roll in them. So high temperature, high conductivity will make some of those tomatoes, even commercial varieties, will have a leaf roll. Pretty common with highlight.
So do you recommend growing them like under the shade cloth?
If the shade cloth is about 25-30%, yes, absolutely, they will grow much better.
Okay.
So you would use only a 25 or 30% shade cloth on that?
Yeah, indoor, you see.
Because you said earlier 1% less light is 1% less production. So you want to go as light as possible on the
1% of what you see, that's the question. I mean, if your light is already, you know, we use a term called daily light integral. So tomatoes are in foot candle, tomato gets saturated after 2,500 foot candles. And right now outside light is about 12,000 foot candle. Inside the greenhouse is about 6,000 to 8,000 foot candle. So imagine that after that there's a saturation point for tomatoes. Cucumbers, 3,000 foot candles. Peppers, they really their lower leaves will roll inward when the DLI and vapor pressure deficit is high.
Okay.
This year, I also noticed that on my Rudbeckia, that they did a leaf curl.
Rudbeckia is an echinacea variety.
It's
Is it a composite family? Yeah, Rudbeckia.
no, it's more like a sunflower. You know,
Yeah,
it's you know.
yeah, they will roll as well. Absolutely. They're very sensitive to humidity as well. So when the temperature and humidity are very high, or humidity low and temperature high, the vapor pressure deficit is very high. So the moment there's a high transpiration stress on plants, they try to compensate to cut down the light. And we learn from those plants to cut down the light by shading in the greenhouse. That's what Sandra does with automatic shading methods.
Okay.
After all these years of growing, this is the first year that Rudbeckia has done that to me. But
Yeah.
had an awful lot of prime sunlight this year.
Exactly, yeah. And then the UV index is increasing every year. I noticed that with the smoke as well. Even outdoor plants, I have a one pepper basket and one tomato. I have put it in a side of my house in the shade, and they love it. Otherwise, the leaves they just roll over the inside.
Yeah. Very
Are you
interesting.
still-
Thank you.
Gail, are you still open?
I am. I'm
Yeah.
still open. I like to grow enough plants to get me to the end of June. but it's getting increasingly difficult to keep everything watered.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
so I might jump on that sale bandwagon, although I'm trying to hold off and not put those plants on sale, but even the big guys around here are putting everything on sale, so I might cave.
Yeah.
That's what I noticed too. All the surrounding places that sell plants, growers and box stores have thrown up big sales. One of the locals went so far as, I did the math, and they're like up to 70% off on annuals.
Yep.
I
Yeah,
did a marketing, a bit of a marketing course a couple weeks ago, and it's interesting. I learned that if you have a 30% off sale, you have to sell 67% more to make that sale have been worth having.
Oh.
Makes you think about it.
Does.
Yeah.
It does. Because that's when we're putting things on sale, it's towards the end of the season. You're never going to see that kind of an influx of sale, like 67% to come up with that 30%.
Exactly. And it's hard to stomach, like when we work really hard to make sure that the stuff looks just as good at the end of the year as it does at the beginning. And it's hard to, sell something for 60 or 70% off that looks better than it did 3 weeks ago.
yeah, I absolutely concur with you. We've got pretty prime product out in our greenhouse right now.
Yeah.
And it turns my stomach to put that on sale. I'm just wondering, should I pitch it instead of putting it on sale?
I agree though too. Like my plants, I don't want to sell my plants for less than what I would be selling them for in May because of all the labor we put into them. But our situation over here is that people don't have the money. And I would rather, I guess, give them the opportunity, if they even have $20 to come and get a box full of plants, than them not have anything at all. So I'm just to the point where I know there isn't going to be a whole bunch more people coming and they're just going to sit there. So might as well try and get rid of what I can and then pitch the rest of it. I just a weird season. It's just weird. Like
I tossed around the idea. I was talking to one of my staff today about it, about putting on a sale, but you had to come in with a receipt from a previous purchase. Because I don't have a problem if giving back to my customers. What bugs me is the people that wait till the very end and they just want to know when your sale is.
That's a really good idea. I never thought about that because I used to have people coming in. I used to put my stuff on sale at the end of June when I had my full business. And there were certain people every year that used to wait and ask me when my sale would start. I never thought about coming back with a receipt to make sure that you'd bought here before. That's a good idea.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, yeah, the whole putting things on sale is a whole topic on its own. But it's good to hear that the independents, which we all are hanging on to the price for what it's worth. And the one you've looked after till the end of June is actually your most expensive plant because you've watered it more often and you groomed it more often, and that's so it should actually be worth more, because it sat there longer, but that's not how it works. But at least if you maintain the price and without putting it on sale, that's really, Laura, that's really interesting that you got that much more sales if you put even a 30% off, 30% off. Wow.
Yeah, I was surprised.
Yeah. But it does make sense. You need a drastic increase in volume because your labor is the same, your watering is the same, everything that you're doing is the same. But your income is the only thing that varies.
Yeah.
Having said all this, I still might cave because it's going to cost me money to throw it away.
That's true too. That's true too. There was an ad from a lady out of Red Deer that had 2 Boston ferns hanging outside, and one of them got stolen. So she made a Facebook post, and she said, for the person who stole this beautiful fern, you know, I'm taken back that you would, you know, steal plants from somebody's house, from their porch, physically taking it off the hook, you know, by my front door. It's pretty bold. And she said, you can always bring it back. You know, they said, you know, I won't argue with that. But if you insist on keeping it, you know, look after it really well, water it, you know, and it like partly shade, you know, the Boston fern. And if you cannot do that, so you don't have the right location, please donate it to somebody who can look after it and give it a good life. So I thought that was really cute.
The guilt trip.
That's right. Yeah. So, well, everybody, we are at almost 9 o'clock, quarter to 9, something like that. So we really appreciate your input. This has been
Michael, for the next 2 topics, I will dig out this commercial strawberry varieties and also end of season cleanup of irrigation system.
That's right.
So we will review sanidate, hydrogen peroxide, pH with the irrigation line. So yeah. So count us in.
We will do that in a shade cloth. So we can find somebody that can do something on a shade system, you know, energy curtain / slate system. That would be good. So yeah.
Yeah, that would interest me as well.
Yeah, you know, so we can go. Well, thanks everybody for your participation and input.
Take care.
Have a great evening, everybody. Bye.
Good night.
Bye-bye.
Good night.
Bye.